So week one's in the books, and Tennessee is 1-0 on the season. And coming into this video, we got our thoughts on the game, our thoughts on the AP poll, and we also are going to talk about Nico Iamaleava a little bit. Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Sports Pass. My name's Eli. We got Max here, and welcome back to another video. And we got a lot to talk about. But before we get in this video, you already know I got to start with the verse of the day. Today's verse comes from Psalm 9:2, and it says, I will be glad and rejoice in you. I'll sing praise to your name, O Most High. And before we get into this, Leo likes to subscribe for more Tennessee football content. Without further ado, let's begin. So for Tennessee, they won against Syracuse 45-26, and there are some people doubting Tennessee, like mainly because of one reason: Nico Iamaleava transferring to UCLA because he was, and I know we covered this, because Nico thought he was worth $4 million. So technically, it was what I like to call a trade, because UCLA got Joey Aguilar, and Nico announced he's going to UCLA. Joey Aguilar goes to Tennessee, and I have to say, what Aguilar did in this game was amazing. Going 16 of 28, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And the thing about Aguilar is something that Nico couldn't do. That was throw deep. And yeah. And I personally think this, that if y'all have been doubting Joey Aguilar for, like, by saying, oh, he's not like Nico. Nico is the glue that held this program together. I hope you've been silenced by now, because if there's anything, the fact that this man threw 3 touchdowns and went 16 of 28, it's pretty clear he's the guy. And it was pretty clear Nico was the problem. And speaking of Nico, he played his first game as a UCLA Bruin the other day. And yep, I tell on your face, Max. Dude, he that game was an embarrassing game for Nico. Like, I'm not trying to bash, but come on, like they lost 43-10, and Nico ends up going 11 of 22, which is a 50% completion percentage.
That's actually a little less, like about like a 48%.
Oh yeah, sorry, because like 11 times 2 is 22, so that's why I cut it in half there. He also has 100. He also threw for only 136 yards, going for 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And Utah just ran straight up all over them. So it's pretty clear that I think UCLA might be regretting this, basically. Like, and to be honest, the way he's been playing, he is not playing like a starting quarterback. He's not really. He's overthrowing his passes. He's basically not even doing anything. And of course, I think for Iamaleava, like, he threw to Anthony Woods for the touchdown, and the fact that he overthrew like a wide open receiver is also another thing. Like, how are you gonna do that? Yeah, and of course, I had to go to church the next day, so I didn't like really watch a whole lot of it, but so I'm mostly gonna give this one to you, Max. Who do What did you think about it?
Now, me personally, I didn't watch the game, but from what I've seen on highlights, Nico is not the guy. Like people blame Josh Heupel for what happened last year, but then he goes to to a different team again, plays playing much worse than what he did last year. It's just like like a guy just think him again, his dad, the toy con artist, personally.
Yeah. Now, of course, I think this that don't get me wrong, like, he was the former like the top quarterback in the country back in high school. When he went to Tennessee, he did not play like no top quarterback. He was overthrowing everybody. And also speaking of, I don't remember. I may have sent you this like a long time ago. But, like, it was announced when he transferred. Someone created this. It said Nico Iamaleava highlights, and they literally put circus music on it, and like and him just overthrowing everybody. I think I sent you that actually.
I think he did too.
Yeah, and there's also one where I saw ESPN like going in before the season. It said Nico Iamaleava highlights. I'm like, of what? The like the like 80 passes he completed. Yeah. And that does sound like a lot, but the thing about it is that's really not too good for a season, really. And I was also making an estimated guess because, you know, considering the fact that Tennessee mostly had a run with Sampson last year because Nico kept on overthrowing everybody. And the thing about every time Nico really got the ball, you knew it was either going to be an overthrow or he was going to try to run for it. And that was really it. But now that we got Aguilar, I think there's hope in this Tennessee team. Like Aguilar playing Syracuse, like we mentioned, he goes 16 of 28 for 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I personally believe that Aguilar is the guy. I think that, he's going to be really good heading into the season. And I also will say this, that now we do only get like one season with him. But I think he's been able to really impress me a lot. And that's just all I got to say. And speaking of Max, so you were actually at that game. What kind of things would you highlight about him?
So like for the first quarter, he was playing a little like Joe Milton, like just like throwing bullets to his receivers. Then second quarter, he calmed down like a lot. So I think that really helped us win because I think if that guy would have played like how he did in the first quarter, he wouldn't have been. We would probably would have won.
Yeah, and there's also another thing I want to mention too is like Peyton Lewis getting a touchdown on the rushing, Deshaun Bishop getting a touchdown on the rushing, and you also got Miles Kitselman with the touchdown receiving, Star Thomas also with the receiving touchdown, and then you also got Braylon Staley with the touchdown. But there's one that touchdown that I want to talk about, and that was Colton Hood, the transfer from Colorado, returning that fumble for a touchdown, and that was just good defense right there. You put so much pressure on the quarterback, you get to him, you make him fumble, you scoop it up, and you go in for the scoop and score. And that's just how I think, Tennessee, I think it just shows that Tennessee's defense is still one of the top in the nation. And that's just, and I think that it's a sign that Tennessee's not going to slow down on defense this year. And that's just what I think there.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with you there, just because they were very like kind of choking can lead at the end.
Yeah, but like usually yeah, but like what I mean is like if like if they're able to like get that energy off because like it's only week 1, but like as we go through the season, that's mostly what I meant by saying that, you know. Um, and then of course, you have Arion Carter leading the team on with total tackles with 9, and I personally think that with with Tennessee, I think that Tennessee is going to be if they can get by, like, of course, they're playing ETSU this week, which we'll talk about, which will be on the All Sports Pass Podcast West channel, which I'll leave a link in the description down below. And then you have the SEC opener against Georgia, and speaking of Georgia, they're coming in over a win over Marshall, and that's just and so Georgia is going to be so the question is, does Georgia have like does sorry will Georgia come in with the same mentality like in Neyland, because they won last year against Tennessee at Georgia, but of course with Tennessee also, well, Georgia's also playing Austin Peay, which is an FCS team, this Saturday, and then they make the trip to Knoxville. And I think this game is honestly a toss up. Like when we get to Georgia, like I know we're doing like a little review, but I think if Tennessee can play well and stuff, I think it'll be a toss up. But I think that of course Tennessee's also playing an FCS team this weekend, and you get a little tune up game. But if you want to beat Georgia, I'd recommend playing your best defense. Like I recommend treating every opponent like they're Georgia, Alabama, Florida, whoever. That's just what I think. And yeah, so that's really all I got for Tennessee, really. But I will say this, that if Tennessee can continue to can continue to pass and run like they did against Syracuse, I think they're going to be okay this season. Well, I think they're going to be good this season. That's just what I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that all. You want to add anything before we move on?
Yeah, I think we have a good shot at beating Alabama this year against Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to say. But we're gonna get to the polls now. And of course, Texas after that loss is no longer number 1. They're dropped to number 7, and Ohio State has taken their spot. Yeah, Penn State down at number 7. LSU ranked 3rd, which I'm gonna be honest, I personally think that's an overranking in my opinion. That's just me, because now they were ranked number 9 and they upset number 4 Clemson only by a touchdown. And I really just, in my opinion, I do not think that is worth being ranked number 3. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I'd understand if they rank number 3 if it's by 2 or more, but just by 1 touchdown, in my opinion, you barely got by them. So that's why I think that LSU is a bit overranked. Don't get me wrong, I think they deserve to be up top 5, maybe top 6. I just don't think they need to be ranked 3rd. That's just what I think. And then of course, you have Georgia at 4, Miami at 5 after their upset in Notre Dame, and you have Oregon at 6, and you have Texas at 7, Clemson at 8, Notre Dame 9, you have South Carolina 10, Illinois 11, and of course, I personally think that with South Carolina, they're ranked 10th after a 24-11 win over Virginia Tech, and I will say this, that I do think that's a fair ranking, but of course, I personally think that before we got into this season, I feel like some of these teams were overranked, in my opinion. For example, Illinois, I just didn't think Illinois was really worth being put in at the in the top 12. I just didn't think that. in my opinion. And they move up one spot after a 52-3 win over Western Illinois, which is a FCS team. And yeah. And then the next one we have is ASU, which is Arizona State, Florida. And then this one here might be controversial that I'm going to say here. Florida State in 14. I personally don't think they need to be there. He's going wrong. While they dominated Alabama, you have to remember what happened last year. Like after Vanderbilt upset Alabama, like back when Alabama was ranked number 1, they ended up not even. Oh, sorry, hold on. I'm at the wrong way. Hold on. ESPN app is acting up on me, guys. Sorry. But I personally think that with that, in Vanderbilt not even being ranked after their upset of Alabama, that's why I think that that's kind of overranking, because Vanderbilt dominated that game. And you also have to realize that while the margin of victory wasn't as much as this one, Vanderbilt made sure Alabama did not lead at all in that game. And of course, you can say the same about Florida State, but the thing about it is with Florida State, I think that they should have gone to the low 20s at least, or at least the the low teens, maybe like from like 15 down. I don't see them at 14. That's just in my opinion. I personally think that, and I'm also shocked that with the fact that Alabama lost to them, I'm shocked they're even still ranked. Because keep on, Florida State went 2-10 last season. They ended up beating Bama by 2 touchdowns. And that's just the thing about it. So with Bama, of course, Bama losing and they're still ranked 21, I personally think they need to be unranked. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
All right. And of course, I think that with Bama being ranked 21, and I also found out that they had not been unranked since 2007. And keep in mind, they're in danger of going unranked for the first time in like 18 years.
Yeah, but also I think this is like the first time in like 19 years they've lost week 1.
Yeah, and
Well, actually 23 years actually.
yeah, and I'll tell you what, like, and I know I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm not too hooked on Kalen DeBoer being Alabama's head coach if I'm an Alabama fan, because the thing about it is, you take a look at what happened. Like, of course, he goes in, he beats number 1 Georgia, like last season, and Georgia nearly comes back. And of course, the Ryan Williams play that he went viral for.
Only 17.
Yeah. And then and what happens the next week? They go to Vanderbilt in Nashville and they lose. And then, and of course, which the third Saturday in October, which I consider a toss-up now, so I'm not really too surprised about that. But like, they barely beat South Carolina in Tuscaloosa, and then they lose to Oklahoma, who last season was 5-6 at the time, and they blow them out 24-3. And then now he goes down to Florida State, a team that was 2-10 last season, and lose by 2 touchdowns. You got to be kidding me, man. And I understand, like, of course, like, I personally think that DeBoer is losing the games he should have won. And that's just a real red flag to me if I'm an Alabama fan.
Yeah. And now I feel like Alabama's about to be new 10 brand new Tennessee when it comes to sucking.
You talk about from the Dooley era.
Yeah, but Dooley, Butch Jones, and then Pruitt.
And here, funny story. There was actually a bunch of hype with Pruitt, and there was
I
even a
know.
book that my dad used to have. It said the fan revolution that started it all. It was about Pruitt, and then there's even a commercial that said Tennessee used to bring fear to the SEC. And then years later, and years later, they're no longer bringing fear. That's why I'm here. You know what happens? He literally loses to West Virginia week 1 in 2018. He
He
loses
also
to
lost to
Georgia State in 2019.
BYU.
Yeah. And and I'm like, yeah, this dude needs to be gone. And then after the COVID year, ended up like, we hear a breaking news thing that Pruitt's been fired. I'm like, what? And they get Josh Heupel from UCF to replace him. Best decision ever because he's actually been able to turn this program around. And the thing about it is that with Bama, like there are people who like Tennessee fans mostly, they say Bama's in their Dooley era. I personally agree with that because now I do think the Bower is a bit better than Dooley, but I really do not think that, Bama, I don't think that, DeBoer is really impressing me that much. And I said this when he got hired that you have to realize DeBoer, he goes to the national championship game with Washington. You know how Washington got there? By basically playing nobody. They basically, and that was back when you had the 4-team playoffs. Like they basically played like every team in the Pac-12. That's basically everyone they played. And then, of course, they make it to the Sugar Bowl, I believe it was. And then end up, yep, right there. And then, yeah, and then they end up barely beating Texas, and then of course goes to the national championship game. He loses to Michigan, and then the next year, and then a couple months later, Nick Saban says, "Oh, I'm done with coaching." He gets the offer. He takes it for Alabama. Then and then look what happens to Alabama. They end up losing to Vanderbilt, a team they haven't lost to in 40 years. They lose to Oklahoma, a team that ended up only being 6-6 that year. They get blown out by Oklahoma, and then they end up losing to Michigan in the bowl game, which, and I'm not saying Michigan, like, I'm just saying Michigan this wasn't the national championship caliber Michigan. They end up losing to Michigan in the bowl game. And there's some similarities that I have with Dooley on this. Like, when Tennessee brought Dooley in, you want to know something? They lost to Kentucky for the first time in like 40 years. And all I have to say is this might be a sign that the Bower may be like the next Derek Dooley. But I personally think that with the but I personally think that if Bama's going to succeed, they're going to have to turn their season around or get their stuff together because there ain't no way that you lose to like now unless Florida State ends up like ends up being like really good this season, then I'm personally saying this. I'm putting the Bower on the hot seat if Florida State ends up not being good or if he loses like I don't know like 3-4 games this season because he just ain't it in my opinion. And all right, enough talk about that. We got Michigan ranked 15, Iowa State ranked 16, SMU ranked 17, Oklahoma ranked 18, Texas A&M ranked 19, Ole Miss ranked 20, Alabama, which we just talked about, 21, Tennessee 22, Indiana ranked 23, Texas Tech ranked 24, and Utah ranked 25. And there are two teams dropped from the rankings: Kansas State and Boise State. And Boise State, of course, that upset loss to USF. And I will say this: I kind of expected it because, like, Ashton Jeanty really carried the team last year, and that's really why they were able to succeed a lot, and then there's also Kansas State getting dropped from the rankings, which I said this, like, after hearing how that game went against North Dakota. I said, well, they deserve to be dropped because they nearly lost to an SES school. And like, North Dakota was ahead, and then Kansas State scored in like the final 30 seconds to win the game. And all I have to say is, like, you struggle with Iowa State up in Dublin and you lose to Iowa State, you nearly get upset by an SCS team. Kansas State, I know you're 2-0, but I'm sorry, I know you're 1-1, but if you're gonna seriously not blow out an FCS team, you don't even deserve to be ranked. And that's just, I'm not trying to sound mean, but I'm just saying, like, as FCS teams, you're supposed to blow them out by at least like 3-4 touchdowns. You only win by like 2 points. So I think they did right on getting them out of the rankings. Yeah. And that's all I got on the rankings. What do you got anything to add?
Yeah. I just think 10, she's just a little too low.
Exactly. Like, that's what I think, because, like, Tennessee wins by like 2 scores, and you seriously rank them below Alabama, who got blown out by like 2 scores, and against a team that was 2-10 last season. That, I don't agree with some of these rankings, honestly. Yeah. Let me know what y'all think. Let us know what y'all think of the rankings in the comments down below. And you got anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight, guys. If y'all like this video, get a like, subscribe for more college football content. Remember, go check out the All Sports Pass Podcast West channel down in the description down below if you want to watch the Tennessee versus CTSU game preview. And yeah, with all that being said, God bless and have a good night.